I'm here today with Deke Sharon. Say hello.
Hello, folks. It's a pleasure to be here with just you and me and the cat and the plant and imminent danger. I see the whole thing is wiggling. I love it.
We had a big earthquake down here yesterday, and of course, well, they didn't care, but some things fall over when we have earthquakes here in California, don't they?
Indeed. I've spent my entire life living in San Francisco, so I'm well acquainted with.
So if you all want to know a little bit more about Deke, his extensive bio is down below. But you may know him as, what were your job titles?
Oh boy, I had 4 of them. I'm not sure I remember them all. So for Pitch Perfect, I was on-site music director, vocal producer, male voice #1, and then there was another title, but I don't remember what it is. And in the second movie, I'm the German announcer.
Good. I think the one I'm going to remember from this is male voice #1. That was a credit that I didn't know was you.
Totally, male voice #1.
I'm super excited. I'm super excited about that. Deke has written a handful of books about arranging a cappella music, the heart of vocal harmony. I am in that book.
Thank you. And I'm here they all are. I have a big stack.
Let's see him. Show us your wares.
Yeah, here we go. This is what I've written so far. So far. I'm working on the follow-up to acapella arranging, like advanced acapella arranging or something.
Fantastic.
Don't look for it for maybe another year and a half. We're
we'll give you a little time. We'll give you a little time.
Yeah. I was all I amped up like, oh, COVID, there's plenty of time, whatever. By the time you get the contract signed and all that kind of stuff, life's back to normal. So
right. You're like, I've got a little while. I'll write another book.
Yeah.
So tell us just briefly, why did you go into this? Why did you go into music? Why did you go into a cappella music?
I couldn't help myself. I just loved it so much. I started singing before I could speak, singing myself to sleep and bouncing my head on my pillow. And then I was in I was in church choir, then I was in San Francisco boys chorus. And by age 9 and 10, I was in operas with Pavarotti and touring Alaska and missing the first month of 4th grade. And then I was in every production, every musical, every choir I could possibly get my hands on all the way through school. And the singing lead in the barbershop quartet and the Music Man definitely gave me the bug. And I kept that quartet going all 4 years of high school and learned how to arrange as a result of it. And then a couple of college a cappella groups came to my high school, Tufts Beelzebubs, and that like jazzed me and made me want to go to Tufts and get all excited about it and nerd out in that. And plus, I love the a cappella groups like the Nylons and the Bobs and Take 6 Home and Bobby McFerrin. A lot of them were Bay Area locals, so there was great music going on around here. Plus, the birth of the Harmony Sweepstakes. So I was all swept up in the sound of vocal harmony in all different styles: barbershop, classical, pop, et cetera, and I just loved being inside those chords. I loved connecting with other singers on stage, big choirs, small ensembles. And then when I was in college and started to pioneer and explore the sound of the human voice as instruments, including vocal percussion, whatever, I felt like I had lightning in a bottle. I'm like, I'm going to make a career of this. And everyone laughed at me, including my high school choral director. He said I was like trying to make a career out of professional tiddlywinks, but I didn't care. I couldn't help it. I needed to do this thing. And here we are.
I love it. And I think it's safe to say that the way that you made a way for yourself there inspired a lot of people to do that and kind of made a little bit more room for the popularity of some of this. So we have other people who can now do this for a living professionally.
Well, that was by design, in fact. So early on, when I graduated college and I started the Contemporary Acapella Society of America, started the competition that's in the Pitch Perfect movies, started the first publishing company, started all these things, I realized there are a lot of different ways to go. I could create this kind of like 20th century, major organization model, kind of the way the Barbershop Harmony Society is designed, very monolithic, and I could be at the top of it and like run this whole thing and it would be mine. I didn't want that model. I wanted a decentralized model with a lot of different tastemakers. I didn't want one organization. I didn't want one person, even that being myself, to set the pace, to set the tone. I wanted it to be flexible. I wanted it to be owned by the world, basically, like give away. I created things and gave them away. I gave away the competition that's in Pitch Perfect. I know people are like, what are you doing? What are you thinking? I was like, because it was the best and fastest way for it to grow.
That's awesome.
And competitions as well, and festivals and whatever. I was like, I just wanted it to go and to grow. And so it ended up working out that way, and nobody's in charge, and it's the way that it should be.
Fantastic. I love that so much. So we've hung out a handful of times. I've seen your work with lots of different groups, lots of different conventions and presentations and things. And one of the things that you talk about a lot is authenticity. Can you just say a few words about why that drives you so much?
I think it drives all humans. Okay, so what do we want when we see a movie? We want to be taken on a journey, and we want to believe the actors, right? We have an incredible ability to tell if someone's telling the truth, if they're authentically feeling these emotions, or if they're pretending and play acting. And we are always aware of actors who are just really being themselves in every movie, as opposed to someone like a Meryl Streep or Robert De Niro, who can completely encapsulate the role and make us believe anything, that they're a mother from Poland, or that they're a fashion designer. And Meryl Streep's an incredible example of all of this. And we also feel that authenticity in all of our relationships, from the moment we hear a person say hello on the other end of a phone line, to when we're sitting across the table telling stories back and forth and looking in their eyes. Like, we long for that. And that's a huge part of being human. So when a choir gets up on stage, we want and like nice chords, but that doesn't touch our hearts. Feeling that they are truly feeling the emotion is really what triggers us, and makes for great emotional journeys and powerful performing experiences from professionals and from amateurs.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let me go to the other side of that coin for a second.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen so many groups, you've worked with so many groups. What are some of your performance pet peeves? What do you look at and kind of
go, ooh, well, and I've been honest with this within the barbershop world. I don't like the formality and the kind of things that everyone does just because they've always done them. So for instance, when a group walks out on stage and they all stand and they spread out and then they all take a bow at the beginning of performance, it feels very inauthentic to me. It feels very forced. Now, I realize it comes a little bit from the classical music world, where all the musicians will go on stage and the conductor will come out and kind of bow in front of everyone. But a classical music performance, I do not think is a great litmus test or a great goal for us to be trying to achieve when we're dealing with vocal harmony, because it's so staid, it's so calcified, it's so formal. And one of the things that's most powerful about an authentic amateur performance of a vocal group is that it's informal, that it's very human, and it's that humanity that we want to have shine. I would love it if a group came out on stage and maybe they're like running out, maybe they're walking out, they're waving at the audience and they're smiling, maybe they're nodding their heads or whatever. I mean, if you think about it, when Prince took the stage, when Bruce Springsteen takes the stage, when our favorite musicians, folk singers, it doesn't matter what the style of music is, jazz musicians, they don't come out and all formally bow. So that's the kind of thing that I think takes us away from the authenticity. Also, very proscripted and standardized speeches in between the songs, I think, take us away from the moment. I love it when a group will get up there and, like a baby will cry or like something like that and be like, hey mom, you might need another bottle, like, and then all of a sudden the whole audience laughs because they realize, like, wow, this is a real moment that's happening right now, as opposed to, thank you very much for that. This next song was written by Cole Porter on this date and whatever. And it just feels like, okay, this whole thing is just autopilot. We want the opposite of autopilot. We want the moments alive for every person on stage and in the audience.
Yeah, I know for me, some of my favorite moments of a cappella music have been, in a lobby of a hotel or a room, or after the actual performance and everybody's just hanging out and some people start singing like, oh, hey, and whether it turns into like a, hey, everybody's singing and doing their thing, or whether it's a particular group and everybody's kind of watching and captivated. I love those moments.
Well, people ask me all the time, like, they're like, how did this barbershop group, they're like, it's like a C+ group, why did they get a viral video singing, standing in an airplane in Southwest Airlines, and they sang under the boardwalk? It's not even barbershop. How did they get so popular doing this thing? And the bottom line is, because it was a real moment. Everybody's stuck on the plane, nobody can move, everybody's frustrated, everybody's complaining, babies are crying, people are grumpy, and then all of a sudden they just stood up and started singing, and it transformed the room, which happened to be the fuselage of an aircraft, right? And that was something you could see it on everybody else's faces. And those are the best moments. Absolutely. Singing in the diner after the show, and then the waitress comes over and there's some people at the other end, there's some teenagers over there, and they all are like, whoa, this is really happening. You see on their faces the transformation that vocal harmony can create in everybody.
Absolutely. And I will say, like, those experiences are best had in the greasy 24-hour diner. I remember I was hanging out with Chanticleer after a gig in La Jolla at a fancy restaurant.
Perfect.
And we were making some great music and like singing tags. And we may have been asked to like pipe down. So, just like throwing out there.
Fine.
Know your people, know your audience.
Totally. Tell everybody, like, can you have people tell you to shut up? Like, that's the best.
Like, these are pros, y'all. This is good music.
Yeah. It's like they have this people paid $2 million to see this violinist play.
And now he's in the subway and people are walking past and not tipping.
Totally. They don't realize, like, Chanticleer's here, people. National treasure. Get it together. Right?
What is your problem? You know who they are.
Yes, of course. Whatever. People don't know.
I love it. So I want to talk about kind of continuing down this road. And in order to give an authentic performance, I mean, we still want to enjoy what we're listening to, right? We do want right notes. We do want, decent tone and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about practice? Like, how did you get good at making weird instrument sounds with your mouth? Like, what is the road we take? In addition to performing with authenticity, there's some practice involved. There's some skill involved.
Oh,
Can you talk about that?
100%. So for me, learning how to use my voice as an instrument it wasn't like, now I want to be weird. Like, I'm weird enough. I don't need to go further down that road.
I feel like that was part of the conversation though.
Well, so it all came in college. It all came from a desire to sing the latest music. So when I got into the Tufts Beelzebubs, the group was fantastic. They were beloved on campus, but it was kind of like, these are the songs that everyone can do a cappella, Billy Joel for the longest time, the doo-wop standards, the songs that are Crosby, Stills and Nash, they're already heavily vocal, right? And here are all the songs that nobody can do a cappella, and they wouldn't even try unless you're trying to do it as a joke. Led Zeppelin and Peter Gabriel and Pink Floyd. Like, nobody could ever do an a cappella song, Pink Floyd, because if you tried to shooby-doo-wop your way through it, it wouldn't work. So for me, the challenge was, I wanted to do the music that was blasting from college dorm rooms. I was like, okay, this is all well and good, but every college gig that I'm going to, and the Beelzebubs were invited everywhere. So we were doing like 30 different colleges a year alone, 100 gigs a year, whatever. And you just heard the same songs. You heard Blue Moon all the time, and Only You, and these kind of gems that are fantastic. People joke like Lion Sleeps Tonight. I was always like, no more Lion Sleeps Tonight. It's one of the greatest pop songs of the 20th century. Don't get me wrong. I love the song. I close my encore for Carnegie Hall every single year with that song, and the whole audience sings along. I love it. But when that's the thing that everybody's singing and they're not singing everything else, the a cappella world was kind of stuck in this rut. So I was like, I've got to find a way so that we can do these guitar-driven songs, so that we can do these rhythmically driven songs. And that's where it came from. It was out of necessity.
Although so that said, like, in your next anthology, I will be looking forward to a shooby-doo-wop version of Pink Floyd. Putting in that request right now, please.
Totally, I absolutely, and I can do it.
Make it happen.
You don't want it. You don't want it. You don't want it. So all of it came from that place because I just wanted to connect with the audience. I wanted to sing the latest hit songs on the radio. I would pick a song that was going up the charts on a Tuesday as they were switched over in Tower Records, and they put up the Billboard charts. I'd arrange it on a Tuesday, rehearse it Wednesday, Thursday, sing it Friday, Saturday. And people are like, whoa, this song just started on the radio. How are you guys singing it already? Because it would usually take a year or two for songs to kind of slowly make their way into the canon or whatever. That's what I wanted to do. And the beautiful thing is now the entire high school and college a cappella world, this is how they're based. This is how they work. You never hear The Lion Sleeps Tonight, right? Occasionally, maybe at an afterglow, you hear the latest Janelle Monáe song and like, oh, Adele has a new album. I'm going to do the B-side from it. And everybody's trying to do all these different songs. And it makes every concert so much more interesting and so much more compelling for high school and college students and people who are really caught up in this young music of their lives that they're so excited about. So it worked, but that's the reason why we needed the tools to be able to do this kind of music.
So I'm seeing a theme here. You're like, I love a thing. I want to do the thing. I want to make the thing relevant. And I'm just going to figure out a way to make it happen.
That's what else is there, right? I mean, that's really what art should be. And the thing that's interesting is, for me, like I have this kind of like a dichotomy, right? For me, it's never been about trying to be Bob Fosse or Gene Perling, right? There are artists who have a particular style and they always do things the same way. Everything is like seen through that lens. You can tell Bob Fosse's choreography, doesn't matter if you knew he was involved with the movie or whatever. You know, you hear a Gene Perling arrangement, you're like, that's Gene Perling, Singers Unlimited. Like you just know these dense, gooey chords. That's the way, and everything went through that. But then there are people like Michael Bennett on Broadway who directed, I mean, he did a chorus line, but he did so many different shows spanning 100 years. You'd see show after show, you'd never know he choreographed them, all fantastic, but it was never about him. He wanted to serve the song, he wanted to serve the moment, he wanted to serve the musical. And that's how I like to approach arranging and approach music. If I'm going to do a song from the 1930s, if I'm going to do a song from the 80s, whatever, I want it to sound very much like that. And I morph my own style and use different tools to try to get the singers to connect with the audience in the best way possible. And then it's not about a singular kind of a sound or a style. That's how I think the a cappella world works best, in an incredibly varied, diverse range of styles and techniques, to make that audience performer connection as strong as possible.
It seems to me like you have a pretty big toolbox at this point. You sing, you arrange, you do instrument noises with your face. How do you get good at something like that? Because I think there are a lot of people sitting around like, oh, I could never do that. I could never sing. I could never make a guitar sound with my face.
You can do it. It's super easy. I mean, I've got a YouTube channel and you can, 5 minutes later, you'll be doing it. So I think there's a thing in choral music and maybe sometimes in barbershop to some extent that I think, and in scholastic music as well, which is like you spend gobs of time rehearsing and then you have 3 concerts a year. I think that's so incredibly broken. And what I tell groups all the time is, if you want your group to get a lot better, what you need to do is go out and perform a lot more, because there's only so good you can get in the rehearsal hall. Plus the stuff you really need to know about performing that you can't learn in a book. How do you grab a crowd? How do you excite teenagers and people who are 50 years old with the same piece of music? Like, how do you make a performance work for a 6-minute U2 song when you want it like you have to trim it down, use the best bits, trim the stuff out here, move the solo down a little bit because you don't have Bono in your group, blah, 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 blah. Like all these things you can theorize about all the time. But when you've got, you're at the Gilroy Garlic Festival and there are gonna be 100,000 people there and there'll be several music stages and you're doing sets Friday, Saturday, Sunday, several sets. You got to put together the perfect set, 20 minutes. What's your 20 minutes? That is very different from rehearsing. That's a whole different skill set. And the more people do that, learn how to draw a crowd at their farmer's market, how to excite the alumni or the faculty from your university, and then turn around and sing for middle schoolers or high schoolers with a different set of music, but still use those same performing tools. That's so important and not covered in books. It's not, you can't. I mean, I talk about it. Here are the books. I talk about it.
But there are books.
You need to get out there in front of people and do it. And so I'm saying all of this to make the point, rehearsal's nice, go perform. That's how you get good at things. That's how you learn what matters. And in the end, you'll also find out you don't really have to sound exactly like a guitar. You just need to find a way to do the thing that's compelling for people and makes them feel something. Because that's what, they don't need you to sound exactly like a guitar. They can listen to guitar music all day. They want to feel something. That's what matters.
Absolutely. So speaking of Gilroy, I grew up in the Bay Area as well. I just want to say I could smell that memory when you just said Gilroy Garlic Festival.
Yeah, it's a powerful one. All I would say is the free garlic ice cream, eat it after you've had a lot of garlic chicken and stuff like that, because then it just tastes like ice cream. But if you eat it first.
Yeah, and probably just for your fellow singers, you might want to do the food sampling after your performance.
Yeah, or socially distance, which is really, I think, something that I learned initially. I think you're right.
Comes in handy, for sure.
Yeah.
I think the thing about taking things in front of an audience is you have no idea what they're going to react to. You may have prepped the thing that you think is the absolute most interesting, intricate, exciting, high level thing. And then you go out and sing, The Lion Sleeps Tonight or whatever it is, and they go nuts for it, right?
They're nuts. They go nuts. You're exactly right. And in fact, there was a thing I started instituting when I was in the Beelzebub. It was called a one-page arrangement. I was like, I'm going to arrange a song and I'm going to fit everything on one page. It's going to be the simplest thing in the world. We're going to learn it in half an hour and we're going to sing it this weekend. And those were some of the biggest songs we did. I mean, you almost like kick yourself. I'm like, why am I getting this conservatory degree? Why am I spending so much time worrying about like chord factors and all this stuff when people just want triads and rock and roll and a good time? But a really good set will have a combination of all these elements, but never underestimate the power of simple music. And I tell this to groups all the time when they're getting started or like, oh, I've started a new quartet. What are we going to learn? I heard this fantastic arrangement that's so complex by this wonderful other quartet. I'm like, no. Learn the easiest thing you can learn. Literally learn a few of those things.
And nail it and make yourself feel fantastic about it.
Yes.
You're not going, I hope I don't screw this up in front of all these people.
Exactly. Yeah, extended range and all these like problems you're setting up for yourself. No, get some tailwind going. Like, build some steam, move forward and build up a repertoire of tried and true gems. And then you can gig and then, get yourself a national anthem so you can go sing in sporting events.
Go sing in all the ball games everywhere.
Exactly.
And then add the cool stuff, right? Because there is a reason that you went to conservatory and learned all the fancy arranging, because that stuff does come in handy once in a while, right?
Super great. And also, the thing that I learned most of all in the conservatory is that it's about how to find the right time and place for all those complexities that actually emphasize, underscore, and enhance that emotional connection. That's where it really comes in handy, rather than just showing off, right? For me,
I feel like that's like the garlic festival thing, right? If you have the right amount of garlic in the right place, it's great. But if it's just all garlic all the time,
totally. Or chocolate, like a triple chocolate layer cake with chocolate sprinkles and chocolate sauce and whatever. At some point, you're like, there's just too many extra chord factors, right? Like pump the brakes.
Yeah, give me some raspberries.
Yeah. We need a melody. We need moments. Yeah. And also, if you're spending all the time on stage singing like this, like with the fear in your eye and like staring off into the distance, like, oh my God, what's my next note? And can I tune these things or whatever? Then you're doing something that's too complex. Remember, the most popular restaurant in the world is McDonald's, and people often just want a really good burger. I'm not saying McDonald's is a good burger, but what I'm saying is their comfort food is a wonderful thing, and people go to it for a reason. And there's the comfort food of music. It's not about being complex. Nobody walks into a bookstore and says either I want the most complex book you have in here, or I want the one with the perfect grammar, like all these technical things. They want a story that's going to take them somewhere. And sometimes there are going to be big words in it, and sometimes the grammar is going to be flawless, but that's not the point. That's not why they're there. They're there for the story. They're there for the feelings that they take away. They're there for the escapism, et cetera, et cetera. So do the same thing with your music. Do the same thing with your sets, and learn how to do that by performing. That's the only way you can do it.
I love that. So I think that brings me to my last question, which is, what kind of advice would you have for people who are a little bit terrified to go and do things in front of people, or dealing with stage fright, dealing with that sort of anxiety when they're getting ready to go perform?
The more you do it, the better you are at it. I mean, it's like anything, right? I mean, imagine being a chef and cooking all the time, but never tasting your food, right? When you're rehearsing and it's fun to make music just for yourselves, you're kind of sitting there and you're whipping up these recipes. But in the end, if you're not getting in front of people, if you're not sharing that music with others, then it's like you're taking this like beautiful, like, oh, I made all these souffles and these beautiful macarons and whatever, and then just throwing them in the garbage. Like, don't do that. You want to get out there in front of people, and they need your music right now more than ever. Oh my God, who's so sick of Netflix? Who's so tired of just staring at a screen and not having real experiences? People need this. And I promise you, I mean, okay, so if you really have like clinical anxiety and stage fright and all that kind of stuff, there are safe things like beta blockers that can be prescribed to you that have no side effects, and professional musicians use them as well, that are able to like targeted lower your anxiety about that. But also, the more you do it, the more you realize like, hey, this is no big deal. And the number one thing I'm going to give you that you're not going to believe me until this happens for you, mistakes actually make the performance better. Okay, think about Saturday Night Live, Whose Line Is It Anyway, Carol Burnett's show, all these great comedy shows. It's when someone loses a line, drops a line, starts laughing, cracking someone up, that the audience just goes ballistic because they realize, wow, this really is happening. It's really live. I love it and I'm connected to it. Same thing in music. The biggest jazz album of all time is Miles Davis's Kind of Blue. His first solo on the first track, it's his album. He could have re-recorded it. There's a squelchy note. Like, he knew that you want little bits of grit in the ointment to make people realize, like, wow, this really is happening right now. It's real, it's authentic. So it takes some of the weight off your shoulders. You don't have to be perfect. In fact, it's the imperfection and the humanity of who you are and what you're bringing as a gift to other people that you're singing that really draws them in. And once you experience that, you realize, like, hey, I messed up a word, I messed up a moment or whatever, and nobody cared and they applauded and they loved it. It takes a lot of that weight off you, and the anxiety starts to dissipate. So just get out there and sing. People need it so much, and it will fill your heart as much as it fills theirs.
Thank you so much. And thanks for hanging out with me today. It was great to catch up with you. I'm glad to see that, things are moving and the world's open and we're making some live music safely together.
So good and so necessary. Yeah. And I hope I get a chance to spend more time with you in person down in San Diego, wherever. And for everybody who's watching this, I hope we cross paths soon while you're out there performing, while you're making music for people, making the world a better place. That's why I get on a plane, trying to do the exact same thing. The world needs us right now, spread some harmony through harmony. So thank you for watching this, and thank you for your harmony.
Sounds good. Take care.
Thanks.